EACES.
Hola.
Vítejte. SYNAPSES Academy.
Welcome to the SYNAPSES Academy podcast, a podcast in which experts from various fields provide their tips for sustainability citizenship in education. Energy transition, climate crisis, financial crisis. Everyone talks about rapid change in many aspects of our life. But do we really understand what that means, change? In today's episode, we take a deep dive into the logic of transitions and learn how school heads can facilitate change within their own school. Enjoy. Today we have with us Riele, who is an expert on societal transitions and one of the founders of transitional thinking in the Netherlands. For more than 20 years, Harry has been guiding organizations through transitions, or, as he likes to put it himself, helping them understand their own reflexes during times of change. He is also a writer, designer, action researcher, and has recently joined the EACEA team to focus on the educational sector. His main objective: reducing social, psychological, and economic damage in times of transition. Did I sum it up just about right, Harry?
Yes, you are very right. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you for coming. We're very happy to talk to you and to learn from you. Just before we begin, your main objective, are you pessimistic about transitions, reducing damage? What is this about?
I'm very optimistic. Very optimistic because the newest generation is very much aware of what's going on. And they don't know yet how to solve all the societal puzzles at hand. But they are willing to give their commitment and their best years of their lives to solve the societal problems that we have, with sustainability as a giant wave under all this.
Okay, but here you are to at least reduce some of the damage that might come out of it.
Yes, if I can, I would love to do that.
So let's take a couple of steps back before we move into that, because what is a societal transition, according to you?
A societal transition is a transition period in society where quite a large portion of society starts to shift, where societal routines get from sometimes centuries or decades long periods of relative stability towards a new, often unknown direction. And it's a period of confusion, of not really knowing where we're heading for. And it's a period of mourning and loss and, oh my gosh, where are we going to together? There are similarities in history. For instance, at the start of the 20th century, when industrialization scaled up, and everything that was familiar until then changed. And the second analogy is just after the Second World War, in my own country, where we decided to change our whole country and make it much more modern. And now there's a third example of such a deep change of nearly the entire culture towards sustainability. I mean, we need to change nearly everything in our consumption patterns, in production patterns, in our economy, our monetary system. We can learn from the past, but on the other hand, things are different as well. There's much more information and technology. The individual is much more emancipated today. Complexity is, I guess, as large as it was during the past two examples that I gave. But, well, it's certainly an interesting time, and we can learn from history, yes, but there are differences as well.
Do you maybe have an example in the educational sector? What kind of transitions are happening right now or have happened in the past years?
For instance, in the industrialized world, Western European world, after Second World War, the education system was aiming at, let's say, it had quite a logistic task to as many people as possible to a standard curriculum, and the outcome should be usable in large proportions of society. And now that has come to an end, and education system is searching for, what will be our routines in the future? And individuality will be a main element in that instead of uniformity.
Why did you want to start working within this world yourself? Why is it so important to understand transitions the way that you do?
The answer is partly my nature. I'm very explorative by mind, like I said. So I'm very curious to find out how to do this as a society. And Western societies are moving towards a new cultural era. And how do you do that without too much threatening each other or excluding lines within communities? How do you do that? How do you handle change, deep change, relatively fast change? How do you handle that? So that's curiosity from my side. And in society, on the other hand, I saw nasty processes going on, and kind of cultural wars coming up. Hey, we should be able to do better than that. We should be able to listen to each other and have dialogues with each other. What's going on? What's the narrative? What's the narrative? Where do we come from? Where are we now? Where are we currently? And where are we possibly heading for? And that complete narrative, and plus, what's your role? What's my role? What's the role of number 3 and number 4, person number 5? And together try to get through this period as smooth as possible.
And where do you then see the role of the school in going through this transition?
The entire society and community around a school should be able to read what's happening in society and where the individual strengths and weaknesses and commitments can play a role to have this transition period in a smooth way without too much societal damage. I'm trying to build societies and communities that understand deep change and recognize deep change patterns and know how to handle wisely in case of deep change. And for that you need to connect individuals, and for that you need to educate individuals, pupils, students. And the core triangle is a student, a teacher, and their parents. Or caregivers. And immediately there's a school leader, a headmaster, training the trainers, educating the educators, and extinguishing the societal small fires that happen once you as a teacher tell about the future and tell about societal transition. And next morning there are 3 parents at your desk and say, hey, are you actually telling us as a teacher that our parents did things wrong? They were the heroes of the last 50 years, and you're telling them, did you do that? Whoops. And you need to be able to handle that, and the school leaders play definitely a role in that.
So they are part of an ecosystem. That's what I hear you say. And it's also in this environment that they should act.
Yes.
Okay. Well, going back to your core objective, actually, reducing social, psychological, and economic damage during a transition, it made me wonder, of course, lots of this sustainability transition is instigated by governments, but why or how can these interventions be legitimate at all if they can also cause so much harm? If you're saying,
well, if you don't intervene timely and leave it all to societal forces that we've seen for the last 20, 30 years, then things can become very nasty. Things can become threatening. And if a portion of society postpones change, that's something different from handle them wisely. Handling change wisely is what should everybody's role be? And you try to make individuals resilient. Hey, who are you yourself as a psychological character, and what's your background? So what's your role in this? And you try to make teams cognitively diverse so that the dialogue within teams kind of expands the minds of the members. Hey, you think differently from me. And that dialogue, the capability of small communities and society at large to have this dialogue facilitated is very important to have the quality of the transition period as high as possible, I think. So it's about resilient individuals, it's about cognitively diverse teams, it's about agile organizing, because you do not know the emerging new future. You do hardly know what will be the main line. So it's about agility and being flexible as an organization, and at last, at the highest level, to create networks that are progressing together, having a network throughout society that's progressing in solving this societal puzzle at hand.
Yeah, so maybe to bring it back to the school level again, as a school you can also have a team that is very diverse in terms of cognition, and in that way be more resilient to change, no matter what the next thing will be that comes onto the agenda.
Yes.
And then as a school head, because then you're in charge of this team, how can you facilitate such a team or facilitate such dialogues?
It's very easy. It's actually very easy. I mean, everyone intuitively knows what a psychological strength is during times of change and uncertainty. For instance, just the day before you go on holiday, you as a family, are you used to having your plans ready already for 2 months? Or did your parents decide yesterday where to go? And just, I mean, even the day that you're starting to go on holiday, that you're leaving for holiday. Hey, today we thought we'd go north, but we finally, well, the weather is not that great up there. So we go to France or Spain or the east of Europe. And the answer to those questions already gives you an indication where you are intuitively as a character. Are you fond of change? Are you exploring change? Or are you kind of managing your certainty? That's just one duality, and there are more of them.
Do you have some more examples? Because we'd love to hear the practical advice, things that school heads could also implement tomorrow or during the next meeting already.
Yes, if something unfamiliar comes up, then you ask your pupils and your teachers, hey, do you try to find your anchors back again through your social network and your friends and your family to get some certain levels back again? Or do you go into material documents? Hey, how this instability occurred? Where do we come from? What's the content of this? I mean, there are two different characteristics of each individual. And if you put them together in one room, you have both the societal elements in a society at change and the content and the material elements. And a third duality is, are you as a person an expert and you know very much of a small topic and you work with a microscope once you start to work or you start to study or start to intervene? Or do you kind of oversee everything that's going on? You oversee what others are doing. Well, if you have such a cognitively diverse team, you start to play roles together. And the next turn will be, okay, now we change shoes. Try to stand in the shoes of your opponent. And what happens then? And those are very basic play forms that are vital for understanding that different characters react differently to uncertainty.
Perfect. And it sounds like a tip that you can implement both in your team of teachers, but also teachers in front of a classroom with students, with pupils.
I always would love to have 2 teachers for 1 classroom.
To do this, exactly,
Yes.
to be diverse in terms of cognition.
Right.
I see. Very interesting. Well, we're rounding up this podcast. Unfortunately, it's very brief. I know that you have plenty of things to talk about and explore. Last but not least, do you have any personal piece of climate advice?
Climate advice. The societal climate, I would interpret.
Of course, you may interpret it the way you like.
Dialogue. Try to find techniques, and sometimes old-fashioned and sometimes very new, to have this dialogue between thousands of people on a topic. Well done. To facilitate the dialogue. on all levels of society, be it a classroom, be it a large team, thousands of people.
So thank you, Harry. I hope this has inspired our listeners to borrow a bit of your explorative nature while engaging in dialogue. Do you have any final things that you'd like to add or change? Or
it would be my, if you would ask me, Harry, where would you dedicate the best years of your life to, and then education would probably be number one.
Beautiful. Thank you, Harry.
You're
and
welcome.
Thank you to our listeners as well.
You were listening to an episode of the SYNAPSES Academy podcast. For more information about Synapses or to learn more about our speakers, please look up the links in the show notes. This production was funded by the European Union and produced by the European Schoolheads Association. Views and opinions expressed are, however, those of the consortium only and do not necessarily reflect those of the European Union. Neither the European Union nor the granting authority can be held responsible for them.